Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl as well as the latest episode of iZombie. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Supergirl, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of iZombie. The first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Supergirl. A great episode with a lot of interesting things. The story basically revolved around the cult that Colville started around the whole Supergirl situation. And it was kind of interesting because it is something that kind of fell back, obviously because of just everything that went down the last time we saw this whole cult situation, especially with Colville and everything. But basically, it seems like they're after Tanya. She's the one who stole that Kryptonian book. Essentially, she's a teacher. She knows languages. She's the one that basically helped them decipher. She's the reason why Colville knows as much as he does about Kryptonians, because she taught him how to decipher it and read it. So basically, she knows that they're building a bomb. Turns out it's actually not a bomb. They're actually using a rock to basically try and create a new world killer, because now they all celebrate Reign. Because remember, he had that whole flip-flop because he thought, oh wow, Supergirl got beaten and everything. So she's not the true god now. He's believing in Reign. Because it's also everything that Reign represents. She represents cleansing the world and just being as powerful as she is, because she toppled the original quote-unquote god, that being Kara. That makes her like a truer god. And I think also everything she represents. Colville's just looking for anyone to... He's bandwagoning his belief, and he's trying to do the same thing to others. And there are others that kind of follow in tow, because in particular the girl Olivia. Which Kara kind of blames herself that this all happened because with Olivia. Because it's like... Kara showed her like, oh yeah, I'm human like you. I can bleed. I'm no god. And that basically broke her foundation, because she believed so heavily in Supergirl, and then just she was lost along the way. And now finding out this whole Reign situation, she was still visiting Colville when he was in prison. So it got her sucked up in it, and she wanted to, bring meaning to her life again, because she was so lost. She didn't know who she was supposed to be. And it's like, oh, this is what I can do. This could be my purpose. I could be the next world killer, which that was a close bullet to dodge. But, it's kind of sad, because like Kara's kind of dealing with the same situation of kind of an identity crisis, because for her, like, she ends up confronting James about those situations. Like, you told Lena, and now I'm in this complicated situation. Like, I'm glad this episode too, because it, like, obviously I knew the reasons why she was like very bummed about the whole like kryptonite situation, but she kind of put it in a different perspective of now I understand it even more so why she took it personally. It's like, me and Lena are best friends, like not Supergirl and Lena, but Kara and Lena. And it's like, to her, she took it so personal, because it's like, yo, you're my best friend. You literally wielding a thing that could kill me. We're besties. But I mean, obviously, Lena doesn't know that. She just thinks that Supergirl is a friend. That's all she really thought about it like that. So that ends up being a problem for Kara. It's like she understands why James did what he did, but by doing that, he inadvertently put Kara in a very compromised position. It's like, you're supposed to have my back. I get it. You love Lena and everything. You want to tell her the truth and everything. And you can't have secrets, which once again, I'm still thinking like, oh, there's still that whole aspect. Well, Lena still got her secrets just like James does, because it's just one of those things. Like, once again, it's that situation that it's like, yeah, he has that whole secret, but I guess it's because it is Kara's secret and not his own secret. He's not bound to the same situations like, oh, admitting he's a guardian. But nevertheless, it's sad, because Kara wants to make things better with Lena. She tries to talk to Lena. She's like, oh, I want a friendship. But for Lena, and she brings up a good point, interesting point too, that the reason why Lena, it's not because Lena doesn't like being lied to. And she admits it herself. I said it, but she also says it in this episode, Kara does, about the whole like, Lillian was 100% right. The moment Lena finds out that I kept this secret from her, it's going to destroy every semblance of, because it's like, oh, I'm just like every other person lying to her. I mean, eventually, I guess it's because Lena never had any strong attachments to Guardian, but it's like her and Lena are friends both they're besties as Kara and Lena, but they're friends as Supergirl, so it'd be like her trust would be out the window, because in her mind it'd be like, oh, the reason why you didn't tell me is because I'm a Luthor, isn't it? So, and that's what scares Kara the most about this whole situation. So that's why she's so divided. And like, what should I do? And it's like, and it's something Mono kind of points out to her. It's like, you telling Lena wouldn't because it's the right thing to do, because you owe it to her. It's like, no, you be doing that just to make yourself feel better. It wouldn't be for Lena's sake. And so the best thing is to probably keep quiet about it, because James is in a similar situation, because Tanya ends up, which side note, isn't that actress who plays Tanya? Isn't that the same actress who plays Carly on the TV show Travelers? I think that's the same actress, not unless I'm completely wrong. Could be, but I think that's the same actress. Nevertheless, ended up finding out about Jimmy, which led to the cult being like, yo, we know your identity, we're gonna blackmail you. Which is to say, who's to say they don't use that later on, knowing exactly who he is? I guess because when it was all said and done, like, there was only two people that ever saw Jimmy's face, and I guess that lady's Olivia's the only one who knows James Olsen enough to do. I don't know. Maybe she told the others to kind of keep quiet about it, or I don't know how you prevent that from coming up in the future. But along those same lines, it was kind of interesting hearing Jimmy's reason for not wanting to come out, because like the moment like the cops saw him, what did they do? They still held him up, and even Tanya's like, it wasn't him. He was actually helping me. They're the bad guys. And then in his mind, it's like it literally turned into that situation. It became a skin color situation. Like no one knew who Guardian was underneath the mask. Which there's a whole vigilante thing with Guardian, but it's like, oh, things are different because I'm black underneath, and it's just kind of like he thought, it's like, oh, maybe since I grew past, it's like no. Because now it's like the moment they found out he was black, it doesn't matter all the good that he's done, how people might side with him as a vigilante and stuff like that. The moment they saw that he was black, they weren't willing to listen to what was happening. They weren't trying to understand the situation. And that sucked. You'd like to think that they'd have that same response, even if his mask wasn't off, that he'd be like, oh, they'd be like, freeze, like, what's going on here? But maybe they take the time, like, oh, Guardian, like, yo, what's going on? What's happening? Oh, these suspects bothering you? Okay, so it turns into that situation, too. Because for him, he talks about that story with Lena about how he got arrested. He got cuffs put on him when he was 7. Him and his family are at a hotel, and it's just like, oh, they're like, oh yeah, you don't belong here. Obviously, you're lying about you and your family staying here, until his mom said something, and then they're like, oh, okay, we believe you now. And it's just like, because with his mask on, he never had to worry about that. It's like, oh, I can be based on my actions. Yeah, you might not be all about vigilantes, but it's like based on my actions, not my skin color, what I look like, And that was a thing. I thought that was kind of a fascinating thing. I thought it was going to be interesting if Jimmy did come out, like, because it would be like, yo, like, which is interesting because like Oliver literally has dealt with that exact same situation. So I just think that's kind of fascinating. I mean, it's one of those situations where it's a complicated, like Jimmy will eventually tell the world one day, because like, I don't want anyone that ever looks like me to ever feel like, I want them to know that there's someone out there representing them, of like, doesn't matter like if I'm black, the fact of the matter is I'm a hero, I'm a superhero. Because even Tanya was like, yeah, you're super. He's like, I'm not super. She's like, no, Matt, yeah, you might not be like Superman or Supergirl, but it's like, hey, you're still out there kicking ass being a superhero. And he wants that same feeling for other kids to grow up and be like, yeah, there's someone out there like me who's saving the day, so. And if he wants the world to know, it wants to be on his term, not just because he's being blackmailed into the situation. So, like I said, it's very interesting because, like, Kara's dealing with the same thing, because Kara's situation is different, because the reason why she keeps her identity secret is the age-old thing of, like, I'm trying to protect the people that are most important to me. Jimmy's situation is a little complicated, too, because not even just the whole black thing. It's like, well, you're quote-unquote a vigilante. People can try and arrest you if they know who you are. They're like, oh, I mean, once again, Oliver's literally went through that whole situation this season. Same thing for his team and everything, like the whole vigilante thing. So there's that complication there, which once again, I'm like, what's the difference between a hero and a vigilante? It's like, it's always just fascinating to me. Like, why Arrow, like the Green Arrow is hunted down, but the Flash isn't. Why Supergirl is celebrated while a Guardian is celebrated, but not to the same extent. So it's always a fascinating thing. I mean, and it's like Superman and Batman is that same situation. There's always back and forth when it comes to vigilante and hero things. It's just always an interesting thing to me. Like I said, both instances you're taking along on your own. It's a complicated. I literally already did a video about it, so it's just one of those things. So, but will Kara ever tell Lena? I don't know. Like I think when it comes down to it, she won't have a choice. It's going to be something like, something's either going to force her hand, or like Lena's going to find out on her own, and that's going to destroy everything. Because at the very least, she has a relationship with Lena as Kara, but it still sucks because for her it's like, I'm constantly lying, because it's something I feel like I didn't really think about to this episode. It's like Kara, like, to be intimate, to be like, for someone to be close to you, you can't be hiding stuff from them. When you actually break down Kara's situation, everyone that's important to her knows her secret identity. Yes, a lot of that's kind of work related, but Jimmy knows, Alex knows, Kat knows, but that's more so on Kat's situation. Wynn knows, Alex, like, the people most important to her knows. And if Lena finds out, like, wait, I'm literally the only person who didn't know who you were, so it kind of undermines their relationship, because it's like, oh, I guess I'm not that important to you type of thing. So once again, it also goes back to the, oh, I'm a Luther thing, and that's what it was. When in actuality is, it's like, I'm trying to protect you, because if people find out I'm Supergirl, people are going to come after you, they're going to use that against you and stuff like that, much like she does it for everyone else too. So It's that complicated situation. I also loved in this episode, Monel kind of went all Mike. He kind of put on his Clark Kent situation, like, "Oh, you got in the van." He's like, "Oh my God, are you kidnapping this?" I was like, Monel, you're so good." And Tanya was like, "I'm not scared of you guys." And Monel was like, I'm scared of you guys." I'm like, "Oh, that's so good." And I love that he did a quick change. Side note. About Jimmy too, like his suits in the elevator is like, that's pretty badass. Like no one's got like, it's kind of similar to the whole Arrow base, but still that's kind of like, it's in the elevator. It's just kind of like he needs to press a button and a code word and he gets his suit. I'm like, that's pretty badass. That happens like that. I think that's probably like the most like, I mean, it makes suiting up very easy. Well, I mean, Kara and Superman's case is very easy because it's like, well, it's underneath their clothes, so they can just go like, plus he can move super fast, so they can like just spin the whole traditional like changing outfit situation. Which I wonder, like really quickly, is that how Wonder Woman does her thing too? Because I might look into that a little bit because I know her whole thing was the whole spinning thing, but it's like, does she always wear her? I don't remember if that popped up in Justice. Like it had to have, right? Does she just wear her suit under her clothes too? Does she? She doesn't. Can't. I don't know. I'll make a video about it because I'm actually curious about that. But nevertheless, so it's kind of sad to see things where they are between Lena and Kara. But she was able to kind of talk Olivia down. I mean, sadly, I wasn't expecting her to just hit the thing. I was halfway. I was like, she's like, "This is going to hurt." I was like, "Are you going to heat vision her?" And okay, you're just going to hit the stone. I was like, okay, it still burned like hell, and she had to cool her off of her frost breath, but freeze breath. But I was like, oh man, I was so certain you were going to like heat vision her hand off to keep. I was like, I thought that's what that was going to be. So super close to having another world killer. So that was almost bad. So. What we do end up finding out, though, is that they can find another rock similar to that, so they're going off into space. And Monel kind of has a similar conversation with John, where it's kind of like he wants to tell Kara the truth because obviously he explains the whole Imra situation to John, and John's like, "Yeah, but if you tell Kara the truth, you'd just be doing it for your sake and not hers." And kind of like has to use. It's one of those situations you need to take your own advice type of thing. So that's kind of interesting. I'm very interested to see what goes on with the whole Colville situation because I was even asking that myself. It's like, we have not seen him since he popped up talking to Rain and then he just disappeared. We see him at the end of the episode, which maybe we'll see him kind of eventually lead all that back to Rain and be the one who set her free. I mean, because we don't know. I mean, now that the fortress is kind of gone, that they had, it's like the lady that was giving their orders. I mean, it did seem like she was still giving orders by being like, "Yo, kill Ruby," but we haven't seen her pop up subsequently since. So I don't know. Maybe she has ties to Kova. Like, it's like, what has he been doing this entire time? Like, maybe he's been off on another mission for them because he's a servant to this whole situation. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. What's also interesting too is the fact is that we find out that Rain is actually becoming more and more immune to kryptonite, which it wasn't that strong against her before, but it still had an effect on, I guess, giving large enough dose to her repeatedly will eventually, took its toll on her. Turns out because of the whole pestilence situation, she's actually gaining a resistance. So it's slowing her down, but eventually kryptonite won't work on her at all. So they need to make sure like that rock can help create a world killer. It can also kind of be used to destroy one, kind of get rid of it, make it so that basically they want to overwrite all that she is and make her 100% Sam and rip out any traces of Rain. I'm curious, like, the comparison I can make is a whole Doomsday situation in Smallville because Doomsday had a human side to him. I figure it's going to probably go down to that, like, rip out Sam and separate the two, which then that also turns to that situation like, well, will Supergirl have to be willing to kill Rain since she doesn't have to worry about, well, that's no longer Sam, it's just Rain? Or is it going to be a situation of completely destroying Rain by writing over her DNA? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of all gets dealt with. Another part of this episode is John and Alex, because both of them have their respective situation. Obviously, John with his dad and Alex with Ruby, because both of them have just kind of like fallen into this depression because of their respective situations. Alex is trying her best to do whatever she can to make Ruby happy and trying to be there to help her through everything. But ultimately, Alex realized, like, yeah, I've been pushing her. It's like, because, I mean, she should know, too, from her own experience, like the whole Maggie situation. It's like, when people kind of push you to talk about it and do this and that, all it did was kind of make you more aggravated and kind of made you more distant with the whole situation. It's like, you need to let people take their time to kind of heal. You can't really rush it. But obviously it's just because Alex is coming from a place of caring, because Alex wants to be there for it in any shape or form, like during this whole situation. But some people kind of just need to kind of go at things their own pace. But, you know, like, obviously it's the best of intentions. Didn't necessarily work out when it went to the arcades and stuff like that. But her and Mirren sat down and talked, and it was kind of nice because she learned about him being a Martian and everything. It's like, whoa, you know, and found out about it. And like, what kind of kept him strong the entire time was having faith, you know, and then the Martian God. And it's like, well, what that it eventually led to him meeting with his son again. So obviously, you know, so all you need to do is kind of have faith. And he's kind of like talking about the fact is that, he can look at Ruby and see that she's strong too, that things will, you know, get better. And so it kind of, you know, you see them playing foosball and everything after she explained it to him. And, it, you know, you saw the happiness. It's like both of them were trying to handle their own situations separately, but ultimately it took their situations coming together to kind of find a solution. It was kind of interesting. And it seems like one of Ruby's biggest concerns is something that I brought up before, is like, could what happened to Sam potentially happen to her too? And even Alex is like, you know, they're honest about everything. It's like, honestly, I don't know. You know, that could be a possibility, but it's like, do know that me and so many other people working so hard to make sure that we find a way to like save your mom, and that she would do whatever she can to protect Ruby, which is something I am curious about. I mean, it seems like Sam had bits and pieces of it, as we learned from her mom last episode, bits and pieces of it come up, but you know, it was never probably like as much as it's been in effect since this point in her life, where it's just kind of like the whole Rain situation kind of takes over, like to this extent. So it hasn't popped up in Ruby, so that's good. But who's to say it isn't just something that's dormant that just hasn't activated yet? I mean, the fact that they're willing to kill Ruby makes it seem like she isn't like that, because you think they'd be trying to take advantage of it, get Rain and, you know, get Sam and Ruby. That way you have like at least two world killers in itself like that. But the fact is they haven't kind of makes me think like, no, it's not like that for Ruby. Obviously they don't know that, but obviously I think that's kind of pointing out to the fact that she might not be one. But I mean, like I said, you never know. It could be like something dormant in it, because it's kind of interesting. Like, I mean, I'm sure Rain wasn't initially created to have children. It's probably more so like, no, like that whole human enzyme situation, the enzyme switching her biology made it possible. I mean, maybe it's possible for Rain to have kids, but maybe because she was Sam when she had the baby, there wasn't that transition over, that she doesn't have any ability. Maybe she has some latent stuff because of maybe somewhere in her DNA exists the Rain stuff. Like maybe it's not at full strength, maybe it's like a quarter of the way, maybe it's half. You know, it'd be kind of interesting. But like I said, I'm leaning more towards like it's not their thing. So like I said, a very great episode. Like I said, that whole Lena and Supergirl situation, I think I'm very interested to see like that progress forward. Like, I mean, because it doesn't seem like Lena's anywhere near, doesn't even want to start a friendship with her, because it's like, yeah, you've already betrayed me. So like, there's no, but it's like, if she finds out about Kara, like that'll be the ultimate betrayal. So we'll ultimately see whether or not, like I said, I get the feeling by the end of the season, she's going to find out about Kara's secret. So we'll have to wait and see what the circumstances are going to be, and about this whole trying to cure Sam situation, how well that goes. Also, the whole Bonnell and Kara situation, like I said, wanting to be honest about his feelings, but can't do it because it's just going to be him being selfish about it. So ultimately, like I said, we'll wait and have to wait and see what goes down in the next episode. I'm excited to see what happens. And now moving on to this week's episode of iZombie, a great episode. Basically, the whole situation with Liv in this episode was interesting because there's a whole aspect of, she has to turn herself in or Curtis will die for it. And obviously, Liv being who she is, she'll never want anyone to sacrifice her. Like, the moment Major heard that news, he knew she would do that. Robbie and Levon were like, yo, don't do it. Promise you won't do it. She's like, I promise I won't. It's like, because they knew immediately that she would do that too. Levon is like, yeah, the fact that obviously I care about you. Obviously he loves her, but also it's like, you are so important to the underground. And for Robbie, it's like, me and so many people care about you, so don't do this. And obviously Major is the same way, to the point he drugged and kidnapped her. I also love that this is how Clyde found out about the whole Renegade situation. awkward, weird circumstances that I just wasn't expecting. I was like, what? That's so interesting. Obviously, it was really interesting because Robbie had to be the one to eat the brains in this episode. He kind of had to fill the role of Liv. I even love at one point in the episode, he's like, look at you, just comparing me to Liv. He's like, well, yeah, I can't help it. And you're doing a very crappy job of being Liv right now. Because he basically ate this girl's brain, Makina, who was murdered. Turns out it's kind of interesting. It's one of, like I said, I feel like a lot of cases lately we've been getting. I mean, I guess because of the whole zombieism case thing, like cases are complicated. Because this in particular case, it turned out that the one behind it was someone motivated by brother love because she is just kind of not in the same limelight as zombies, because it turns out that she apparently was it's just, nevertheless, it's just kind of interesting that the dude behind this ended up getting away. That's only because Jacques was there to help with the whole situation, because I mean they have someone in power, you know, with Fillmore Graves to help them out and stuff like that, him being an inspector and everything. So I was almost thinking he just agreed to it, like, yeah, I did it. I didn't know he really did it, but it's like, no, it turns out he actually did, because it's just kind of, she's sacrilegious to everything that the zombies stand for and such and such. So that's kind of interesting. Like I said, I feel like this season amongst any season has had a lot of killers kind of walk just out of circumstance because of this whole zombieism situation. And just the cases this season I feel like have been very complicated in that regard. So it was still nice having Ravi acting like that. Just kind of like, oh my God. Like, because the last time we saw him with a brain, it was a heroin addict. So, very big change for Robbie. And the whole fact is, he kept unbuttoning his shirt. And like Clive was like, button your damn shirt back up. He's like, do you know where the bathroom is? No. Could you help me go look for it? No. Then what are you even here for? It's just like, oh, he's just so full of himself. I'm so interested in what Blaine's reaction to the whole situation is, because this is the second time he's seen Robbie acting the way he is. And being like, knowing that he's on a brain and stuff like that. So it's a circumstances he still doesn't 100% know, but I'm sure it's still something that kind of piques his interest. I mean, it's also because it's like, well, there's a whole him and Peyton situation, so that's another layer to it, which we know still kind of plays a role in why he does what he does. Like, his interest in that situation is also because of Peyton, so it's just kind of funny. But that was just that part of the episode. What I also appreciate is the fact is the whole Clive situation. Like, that detective dude let him know. Like, I thought it's like Clive was going to find out the truth. He's supposed to be going out. But he's like, yo, don't kind of be a dick. You're flaunting that in front of Dale. Dale did that because of you. It's like, because he understood the situation too. It's like, yo, and broke it down for Clive. And Clive felt like an asshole. And he went back to Dale and it's like, I love you because I understand why you did that. And I love you so much for it. Like, you were trying to put my wants before you, like, even though like you love me and everything, you were trying to put my happiness before your own. And so he's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He's willing to become a zombie if it means he can be with her, because, you know, that's kind of, you know, obviously that's been a big thing for Clive since like season 2, trying to avoid becoming a zombie and everything. But I'm curious what has been Clive's biggest reason for not taking that leap? I don't know. Just like, I mean, because he even made it clear in season 2, like, he would rather die than turn into a zombie. Like, when Liv and Major were there with him, and it's like, yeah, we can scratch you if you need. This way you are protected from the zombies. They won't just kind of rip you apart, eat your brains, that whole situation. But, for now, like, when it comes to Dale and realizing everything between them, which begs the question, what about the whole Michelle thing? Is she going to take that breakup lightly? Because there's part of me wondering, like, there's part of me that was legitimately scared because he's proposing to her and everything. And it's like, yeah, they're happy. It's like, yeah, they're on top of the world. And then me and my brain goes, yeah, but that's probably not going to be good. Obviously, the whole Robbie situation, which I'll kind of bring into a little bit, will probably lead back to that, but we'll kind of have to wait. But it's a whole situation, and the fact is that I'm wondering, is Michelle going to have like a breakdown where she ends up shooting Dale or Clive because of this situation? Like, Clive might get shot, and to save him, Dale scratches him potentially. Or maybe she ends up killing Dale or something. I don't know. Like, what if she has like a crazy girlfriend moment? Like, how dare you do this to me? Like, Michelle is actually kind of crazy, but no one knew it until now because no one really looked too deeply into her. I don't know. Like, that's what I was halfway expecting, because I thought we'd see her looking outside. But I don't know. Maybe Clive broke things off with her. I don't know. We'll ultimately kind of have to wait and see on that. But that's kind of my concern about this. It's like, are they going to have a happy ending? I want them to, but I don't know if it's going to play out like that for, I mean, whatever respective reasons. Like, there's so many different reasons and ways this could go bad. But I'm hoping and praying that everything kind of works out for him. But the thing I'm kind of skipping to it is, like, the whole reason about Ravi is he was trying to basically, there's a certain chemical that pops up in the cure that, like Ravi was saying, that is excreted from Isabel's brain, And basically, if he can do that, if he can kind of get that part of her brain to kind of trick her brain into activating that, he could use that and form it into a vaccine for zombieism, which also would mean that, Clive wouldn't have to worry about the whole like him and Dale situation. Like, oh, like he'd be kind of in a similar situation to Ravi where it's like that wouldn't affect him. But, obviously it'd be probably a better like vaccine. So no more spreading of like everyone that's zombie stay zombie, but everyone that's human would be protected from becoming a zombie. So there's that. But it turns out it's not just not more a vaccine. It's actually an outright cure, because it's interesting because her brain actually turned orange because of it, like whatever it was. Like I said, we still don't know what it is inside of Isabel's brain that lets that, what chemicals, like, whether it was experiments or whether just something specifically in her. It's still kind of up in the air what it was exactly. Like, obviously we know that one particular like protein that's there, that's in the cure as well. So it's definitely going to be very interesting going forward. So I was wondering if that was going to be, play a part in it. Because I was wondering, like, if Dale gets cured, that's no longer an issue. Because, like, hey, we're both human, we can have a family. So, which there's also the situation of, like, oh, Dale might get turned human. And then, like, I'm just waiting for, like, a Romeo and Juliet tragedy type of situation going down. I just got that inkling, man. I like, and things aren't all happy endings for a lot of people in this show. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know, So ultimately, we'll kind of have to wait and see. Because that's going to definitely be interesting, because that would ultimately mean that Blaine's cures mean nothing. Because, like, that whole point is, like, banking on the fact is he can make a lot of money. Like, to our knowledge so far, has he sold any of the cures yet? I don't know if he's actually, they brought that up in the story. He hasn't sold any of the remaining cures. He's got, like, over a dozen, but still, if Robbie does this, he kind of undermines everything that Blaine is trying to accomplish. I mean, he would have done that with the vaccine, sure, but even more so now, because people who are zombies, like, oh, I can get cured? Like, those who aren't fully invested in this whole situation of being zombies, like the ones who follow the whole brother love situation, so. Which is interesting. Speaking of Blaine, you do see that his dad, he's trying to convince his dad, like, oh, hey, go out there, spread your zombies out, kind of make more people into zombies, turn half of America into zombies, and the other half leave them as human as food. Because basically of the current situation of like, yeah, humans on the outside just looking for an excuse to nuke Seattle. It's like either, the humans wipe us all out type of situation, or we wipe out all the humans and then we run out of food, and then it's just kind of like even more reason why they get nuked. It's that whole situation. So, but my mind about that, I was like, okay, so my initial thought was like, oh, obviously he wants more people zombies, because more people who are zombie, more money he could potentially make on the cures. But it's also because, well, as one of the biggest like brain distributors out there, of course he'd make a killing on that situation too. So obviously he's trying to manipulate his dad. Like, part of me was wondering if he actually believed in his dad and everything. Like, he was kind of getting sucked into it because, like, oh, my dad's such a good guy. Now it's like, no, because he saw what his dad had, what kind of pull his dad had on over zombies, and then like if he can spread that more and get more people following his dad, that means more people he could sway his own way, because all he has to do is manipulate his dad. Like, his dad's kind of an idiot now, so because he's so focused on like, yeah, the grand design and stuff like that, zombieism ruling and everything. I mean, it's still the whole aspect of, because he was reluctant to make this move because it's like, well, humans kind of have the upper hand when it comes to weaponry and stuff like that, so going full spread like this is too soon in his opinion. But because Blaine faked the sign and everything, he's a lot more prone in deciding he's going to go through with it. So ultimately we'll kind of have to wait and see. But this episode was very cute, and going back to like, I'm going to go and swing back to the whole Major and Lily situation. Not Lily, Liv situation, which is interesting. He ended up telling Gladwell. I thought that was so interesting. It's like, yeah, and that's how Robbie found out. It's like, yeah, so Major wanted me to tell you he kidnapped Liv, and yeah, Liv's like, Renegade is like, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, why would he tell? I guess you trust him. I mean, she's not all about Chase anyway, too, because I doubt she's going to be willing to help him out in any way. Which, really quickly breaking that down, is that whole situation with Chase where it's like Hobbs came. I guess the whole point was to test Major's loyalty, because I guess after Chase's whole like meltdown last episode, he knew Major's trust in him would waver. So, like, it's not like Major wanted that position. I don't know whether that was stuff that Major actually said, not unless they manipulated, but it didn't seem like they did. Because I was wondering, like, either they're trying to catch Chase off balance, because it's like, even the guy he trusts, he can't trust, so it leaves him, because Chase is already paranoid and stuff like that. So, but like I said, that's probably why he did that, because he knew that he was like, okay, go to Major, see what he has to say. And the fact is, Major's not as loyal as he thought. He has literally no allies. Like, Major was the last person he wholeheartedly trusts, and now it's nothing. I mean, because he knew how Major would probably react because of what went down last time. So Doesn't seem like he's all that damn remorseful about what happened, even apologetic. But Major did point out, like, yeah, because of what went down, like, he is realizing that Chase isn't right. Like, he said that just to distract Liv, but I think he did believe that. Like, yeah, she was right about Chase. Even Gladwell was like, dude, like, all the soldiers, and Hobbs was saying it, but it was most likely a means to get him to say, like, that's the thing. Like, I'm leaning that way, but there was initially, I was like, oh, he's just manipulating the situation because he wants Chase and Major against each other's throats. But the fact of the matter is, like, is he trying to pine for the position himself? I don't know. But like Gladwell pointed out, like, so many people would have your back. I figured that'd be where the story would go, because it's like Major's kind of like the obvious choice because he is a soldier himself, and it's just kind of like, you handle this situation very differently. You care about people on what Chase does, you know? So he's kind of down in the trenches with everyone else, so he kind of has a different perspective. Like, whereas it's kind of saying like Chase has kind of lost sight because he's more bureaucratic about this whole situation. Like, no one wants this whole situation held by some politician or like someone who plays politics. We need someone who understands, who can lead us, you know? So I don't know, it's definitely going to be interesting seeing that going forward. But getting back to it, I keep going to it and pulling from it. It's a whole Liv and Major situation. I love that he's just kind of like, when he opens the trunk, he's like, hey buddy, and it's just and then like, it's like, oh, Liv, honey, I'm home. And it's like, what's going on here? It's like, oh, you tricked her with her brain and stuff like that. It turns out it was like a happy couple and everything like that. And it's like, oh, it's just adorableness. It's like, oh yeah, you know, it's like, oh, you know, we could stay here forever, you know. And if the whole thing with Robbie's whole cure thing happens, we could get cured, and then we could, you know, you could be my, she's like, oh, I could be your fiance. It's like, you could be my wife. And it's like, you know, because obviously there is something, like, these brains help bring out what was already there between them. Like, there's always going to be something between her and Major, because like I said, their situation, like it's always interesting when it comes to their situation, is that the fact of the matter is, like, they've always been in each other's life throughout this whole series, and there's always been something there. Like, Liv hasn't always had the best luck with like relationships, but obviously, like, her situation with Major, like, though it's been complicated over, especially this past season, but it's always kind of been complicated. Him being human, him not being human again, and then like the whole him potentially dying, him losing his memories, all that complication. And it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, they were together again, and then they broke up because of their own different sides, because they have two different views on how this whole zombieism and Seattle situation should be worked. Her being renegade, him feeling crazy, that whole situation. So, but I think they always had this connection where it's kind of like, it's hard to say whether it's a good thing or bad thing, where it's like, them being together, is that them just trading back to what they had before? Is that forever gone? They're important to each other, but they can never go back, because that would be, you know, going back. Or do you think it is possible for them to step forward? I mean, I'd love to get your opinions about that, anyone that's listening to this, because I mean, I want them together, but I could see that perspective of like, well, that just be going back. We need to be moving forward with our lives, you know, because they kind of slide back towards each other constantly, which could be a sign of like, yo, be together, because you always find your way back to each other. So I don't know, but it was kind of cute them being like that. It's really sad because you end up finding out about the couple that's in the basement. They were running out of brain tubes, and they were supposed to like shoot one another in that situation. But they couldn't, you know, and they rather kind of desiccate together, you know, and which is kind of sweet and sad. I even love it because it's a situation you don't see that much with desiccated zombies. Like, it's not something that comes up a lot throughout the show, but you see them kind of almost still having some humanity, because I've never realized how they react when it comes to other zombies. I don't remember that ever really coming up before. We've seen them interacting with humans, but never other zombies, because you see them in that state, and they're just kind of like Major's kind of unlocking it, and the couple just look at him doing it. He's like, well, you got any ideas? Obviously, they're not in, like, they don't really have their humanity anymore, but they're acting like that. I was like, I didn't know in that state you could still be kind of like that semi-conscious. It's kind of sad that Russ Roach showed up and killed the husband, and she's kind of left alone. I at least on some level hope that like someone killed her too, just so they could be together, because they wanted to be together, you know. They even left a note and everything, which is kind of sad. I thought that was going to be what ended up changing Major's mind to kind of maybe walk away from this whole. I mean, that's kind of the whole point. He kind of wanted to walk away, but for Liv, it's like, even under this brain, she couldn't do that, because it's like, what kind of person would I be if I let someone die for me, you know? And it's just that complicated situation of, they feel the way they do about each other, but for Liv, she can't walk away from this. She can't let other people fall because of what she's done, you know? So she understands what Major's trying to do, but it's just like, this is her choice, and he can't, besides, she's also a little peeved about the whole kidnapping thing. It's also interesting because we ended up finding out that this married couple wasn't 100% married, like happy, because apparently how they died was a car accident, but it's because the wife got so sick of the husband, like, his singing, that she crashed the car. That's why the Fillmore Gray soldier, I love that they stitched it like that, was like someone else had a taste of the brain. It's like, yeah, everything I do ignores my wife. And it's like, oh, so I guess Liv had enough semblance of herself to not kill him. I mean, thank God. But that's kind of motivated her probably even more to kind of fight the brain and kind of just lock him up. It's like, oh yeah, here, dear, because everything you do annoys me, and plus you kidnapped me and everything. But it's like also because Liv is like, I got to do this. But she ended up killing Roach, so that's one less issue. Because I almost like that's something that's like, right, he escaped, right? He's an issue, so no longer an issue. So that's interesting. It seems Liv does send someone to go try and get him later on, but you have Levon doing the whole thing of turning himself over. Liv admits everything, and now, Levon even tried to speak to Chase. It's like, don't kill her, put her on ice or something like that. It's like, both of you want the same thing. You both want to kind of protect zombies. You're just going about it different ways and stuff like that. But Levon tried to hold Chase, but Chase ended up escaping, and it's like, yep. And because of this, now both of you are going to get executed, and it's just like, dude. Which begs the question, like, we still don't know what happened with Peyton's whole situation because she went to DC. She's like, don't worry, guys, I'm going to be back. What's kind of like, oh, that's foreshadowing some stuff. Under what circumstances, what that's necessary foreshadowing, we have no idea. So I am very interested to see what goes on in the next episode. We might see Major decide to take over Fillmore Grace just so he can make sure that he saves Liv. Because like I said, I figured this situation would be what it is. It's like he let Mama Leone die, but it's like, it's Liv, so it's different this time. Will he get there before Levon dies? Which is like, if Levon dies, that's going to suck ass. Like, no matter what the situation is between him. It's like, that would be like strike 3, technically 4 on the relationship thing. It'd be like, their major situation, which is on and off. The Lowell situation, the Drake situation, the Justin situation, which to be fair, Justin's situation is kind of like, well, it didn't, once again, didn't end as bad as like the whole Drake or Lowell situation. And like I said, the major situation is still kind of complicated, but it's still kind of okay, so we'll ultimately see what happens. We'll see someone taking Chase down. Obviously, you have the whole brother love situation. Like, so many avenues are coming together. I'm pretty sure next week's episode is the season finale, if I remember correctly. Most things I've seen just stopped with episode 13, so I'm assuming it is. It seems like season 2 is the only season that had like that weird number. I wonder why that is, but nevertheless. So, I don't know. I'm very excited to see what the potential season finale has in store for us. A little bit of, it pertains to this is, if you don't know, Raul Coley, tweeted out a couple days ago that, iZombie has been renewed for a 5th and final season. I checked it like the other day. It's also on Wikipedia too now. So just in case, but I heard about it first from Raul tweeting it out. So that was kind of like, oh, and then at the same time, oh, but at the same time, it's like you kind of get that vibe because it's like, okay, once again, I've always made it clear. I always prefer a show going into something like knowing like, okay, like we're wrapping everything up. I'm always 100% more inclined with that rather than be like, yeah, we just didn't get renewed for another season. I always hate situations like that. So I'm glad to hear this at the very least. Obviously, I won't talk about it too much because obviously we got to wait till the season finale to find out like, okay, what kind of situation are we going into, potentially into this 5th and final season. So obviously I'll talk about it more, obviously, once we see what goes on in the season finale, what we potentially could see, in the, in 5th and final season. So just kind of want to add that in there at the end. So. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good